Hi guys, I'm Shmi. Hello and welcome back to the channel where you join me today for a first look at this extraordinary machine behind me, the new GMA T.33. Gordon Murray Automotive's newest introduction, a car that weighs less than 1,100 kilos with a naturally aspirated V12, a manual gearbox, some incredibly lightweight materials and technologies, and today we're going to be joined by Gordon Murray himself to take a look around, a walk around of the car as it makes its debut here in the United Kingdom, as well as the engine, as you can see behind. It is a timeless design, a very elegant machine, a tiny footprint as well, and we'll run through all of the details today, here taking a first look with Gordon at the new GMA T.33. We will be joined by Gordon in just a moment to go through all of the details of this new car, the Gordon Murray Automotive T.33. Now, 2 years ago in 2020, we saw the arrival of the GMA T50 with the 3-seat configuration and with the fan for the Aero. That was followed by the T50S Niki Lauda, the race car version. But now we have more of, let's say, a daily supercar with the T33, with this tiny packaging, the smooth, clean lines over the bodywork, aerodynamics integrated within, lightweight materials, but also housing this engine. And for petrol heads, this is what it is all about. The 4-litre or 3,994cc naturally aspirated V12 developed by Cosworth with GMA that offers 615 horsepower and revs, in the case of the T33, to 11,100 RPM. And you can have this car with either the 6-speed manual gearbox or with optional paddle shifters as well, should you prefer. Now, there will be 100 of these, with Gordon Murray Automotive intending to keep the cars exclusive going into the future, never more than 100 of each model. But look at the design of it. As I said, timeless, clean, elegant. You have a lot of storage space, 280 litres in fact. There's a 2-seat configuration here as opposed to the 3-seat, but the footprint is more akin to that of the Lotus Emira or say a Porsche Cayman. It is a tiny little car offering over 600 horsepower with a naturally aspirated V12. It is an incredible car to behold, and when we go through all of the details with Gordon in just a moment, you'll start to get an understanding of what this is all about. So let's hold fire for just a second and we'll be joined to find out all about the T33. I'm here now with Gordon, and may I firstly just say congratulations on the launch of such an incredible car.
Thank you very much.
And I mean, there's a special location where we are at the moment for the
it might seem a little strange being in an underground car park, but it has quite significant importance really, because we're at Windlesham in Surrey, and this is where we've just started digging the ground up for our new HQ. But more importantly, like T50 is just going into production this year down at Dunsfold, and of course straight after that 50S, but this will be the first car built on this site at Windlesham, so we thought it would be apt actually to launch it here.
A very fitting location. I mean, we should really take a walk around, I suppose, of T33, the design, the engine, the Aero, and there are so many details and elements of this car to explore. Can we perhaps start by talking a little bit about the inspirations, the ideas, what's behind it?
Yeah, I mean, GMA, we started GMA, the idea was 2017, and that was really to celebrate 50 years of car design. And of course, that's where T50 comes from. But once you assemble more than 100 people to actually build a car, you've got a car company, whether you like it or not. So we've obviously been working on a product and platform strategy. And the next car had to be quite different. A, because we promised everybody that 50 would be the halo car, and that's absolutely what it is. So we needed to develop a platform that would do us for the next sort of 10 or 15 years. And T33 is the first car off that platform. Once again, only 100 of any one make, a model or variant, I should say. So 100 of these, very exclusive, the same engineering quality as 50. The design really comes from an idea I've had for 25 years, since the F1. I've always wanted to do a car that encapsulates all my favorite 60s sports racing cars. Not retro at all, but all the little elements of the design in a modern shape. And of course, with the central driving position and the forward cabin, the spaceship look, you just can't do that. You know, that wasn't 60s proportions. So this was something that I've been talking to the team about for ages, and here it is, really. Something hopefully will be timeless and still look good in 20, 30 years' time.
You actually get that feeling from it very, very quickly, but it's also a very small package again, similarly to...
Yeah, we don't do big cars.
No,
we don't do heavy cars and we don't do big cars.
And that's extensive use of lightweight materials and very tight packaging. It's hard to imagine looking at this that you do manage to fit that V12.
Yeah, when you think about it, you know, it's got a very big cabin. We package 96 percentile occupants, which is my 6'4" is my height.
Okay.
So the cabin's very comfortable for that. We've got 280 litres of luggage, and as you say, a 4-litre V12 in the back. So it's in something the size of a Porsche Boxster.
And visually, you know, unlike many cars in the modern world as we're seeing now, filled with wings and aero and everything all around, you've kept the design very simple, very elegant.
Yeah, I mean, one of our 7 core principles, we promised everybody everything we make we'll stick to. One of them is a sort of return to beauty. And technically, I really don't like cars that have elements on them that don't do anything. So you won't find anything on this car that hasn't got a function. It's a challenge, if you like.
Absolutely, but so key, I think, in the overall package. I mean, as we're standing here, the front end obviously initially appears quite simple, very smooth, neatly wrapped around, but this is where I suppose the aerodynamics begin. This is where the start of...
It's very much a ground effect car. We've got 2 really large diffusers in the front wheel arch here, which give us about 2/3 of the downforce we need. And then we've got a rear diffuser with a very steep section and a duct, a bit like the fan car, but without the fan. So we obviously don't get anywhere near the performance of the fan, but we get about a 30% increase over a standard ground effect car by using the same step technology.
Okay, and that's all sitting just behind the cabin. And obviously that's a big change here. We're a 2-seat configuration.
Yep.
Left-hand drive and right-hand drive?
Yeah, we're offering left-hand drive, right-hand drive, full federal type approval.
Yes.
Which adds a cool 28 million quid to the development program.
That makes it.
And also we're offering for the first time the option of a manual as standard or a paddle shift gearbox.
Okay, and I guess to talk about powertrain and that side of it, can we head over and talk about your fantastic GMA-Cosworth V12? This is the first time for me taking a look at the engine that you have produced for this. Mm-hmm. In this case, revving over 11,000 RPM.
Yep.
Reconfigured from T50?
Absolutely reconfigured, retuned actually, because taking 1,000 revs off, I mean, T50 we always promised to be the halo car, and to be honest, 12,000 revs on valve springs and a 4-litre motor, it's a little bit on the ragged edge.
It's out there.
So taking 1,000 revs off the top really gave Cosworth almost a clean sheet of paper again with tuning. And now that I've driven the T50, I mean, we said when we did 50, I said I thought this was going to be the greatest road car engine ever. I hoped. Now that I've driven T50 a lot, I can categorically state that this is the best road car engine ever. So in their retuning, they've got even more torque spread. 50 is insane when you think about, when I grew up, you had revs and power or torque, you know, like a motorcycle. 50's got 70% with max torque at 2.5. This has got 75%, but even more mind-bogglingly, it's got 90% of the max torque between 4.5 and 10.5.
Which is a huge range.
It pulls like a train, and of course, if you add that to a lightweight car, it's just unbelievably tractable. But it's still got, you know, the fastest revving acceleration. It'll be the biggest kick in the back of any car, better than the F1 when you stamp on the throttle, because of the weight of the car and the instant response from the NA engine. Once again, we use our 48-volt ISG, which means we've got no belt-driven ancillaries on the car at all. So normally people show you an engine, they take all that stuff off. This is actually how the engine goes into the car, so no nonsense around it, you know. So it's still the lightest V12 ever, still the most power dense. The GMA engine family is the most power dense and the highest revving and the fastest response. So it's still broken all those records.
For sure. Well, I've been enjoying the content that you've been sharing behind the scenes of the development of it.
And of course, to top all that, being a petrol head is the noise.
Yes, yes. I can only begin to imagine that spine-tingling feeling. Visually, given a slightly new identity versus T50 and T50S.
Yeah, so we decided that every time we do a different series of the GMA, the Cosworth GMA, we would give it a different, so this is a GMA Series 2, if you like, and we would give it a different cam cover colour. So the 50s are all a heritage orange, the 50Ss are red, and all the GMA Series 2 are yellow.
Okay, fantastic. And somehow that manages to package
I
into here. And you were telling me as well about the intake and how this...
Yeah, we think this is unique in a road car, certainly recently, because the other ram inductions I've done, and most other cars with ram induction, of course, the intake is part of the monocoque, just as it is on the F1 or the T50. The bad thing about that is, once you get past the bulkhead, you've got to have some sort of flexi coupling, because the engine's moving and the chassis isn't. And that flexi coupling, the inner wall is quite rough, so you break up the airflow. The other thing is too, if this lower edge is part of the monocoque, you get the slow moving dirty air. The lower end of that doesn't work very well. So I've always fancied just having it like a 60s or 70s racing car where you've got the airbox moving independently from the chassis. So it also bleeds off the boundary layer under here, so you're not damaging the inlet size.
So this is exactly how it works. The intake and the airbox fixed to the engine, but not fixed to the roof of the car.
Yeah, completely separate.
So does that mean when it's idling, that will be vibrating or shaking around?
It'll be moving.
So I've certainly never come across anything like that.
It's quite funky. And of course, you'll also get this roof panel. We tune the thickness of this and the induction sound, which is proportional to the throttle opening. You'll get that lovely growl through the roof that you get with 50 and with the F1.
And then also the design here. Talk us through this part.
Yeah, so this is how I envisioned the car. When I first did my styling sketches back in summer 2020, I envisaged the car with this paint colour. This is all carbon, of course, but this body colour, that body colour, and the airbox. However, when our studio started working on the car and started looking at the different ways we could break up the colourway, they started looking at all this in carbon, which gives the whole glass house a black canopy look and changed the car completely. Or, even better, in my opinion, that's how I'm going to have mine, is you imagine this in body colour and this in silver.
Yes.
And then that in body colour or silver. And that looks insanely different, I think we're going to have so much fun configuring the 100 cars with owners.
I can believe it. That will give it an elegance. There's always an elegance to having silver, I feel, on a car, the traditional, almost chrome-esque.
Yeah, it gives it like a Targa look.
Yes, exactly. And another thing I noticed standing here is simply how much glass there is, the front windshield.
Yeah, the visibility is, we do cars with very low scuttle height, so we've got the lowest F1, 50, 33, all the same height. This is over 100 mil lower than normal supercar scuttle, so the forward vision is really, really good.
Yeah, so when you're sitting in there, you'll feel like you can see the road out in front of you. And then beyond that, the glass that curves over.
Yep. And we've got a glazed rear bulkhead on this, so you've actually got rear vision.
So you'll be able to see that vibrating.
For a change. Yes.
Fantastic. I mean, I can see that there's more going on in terms of airflow and, here integrated into the light design.
Yep. Those are front brake cooling ducts.
Okay.
Yep. Heading
through towards, and maybe a word or two on the wheels. I was reading some of the numbers. The wheels less than 7 kilos each.
Yeah, well, I don't like cars that are over-tired. So these are 235 front, 295 rear, a 19-inch diameter and 20-inch diameter, and that's all we need for the weight of the car. The car's 1,090 kilos, so you don't need much more than that. We also make sure we use standard tyres. These are Pilot 4S's, Michelin, which is a great all-round tyres,
Absolutely.
And you can buy them anywhere, so no ridiculous service costs and maintenance costs.
And I think that tells a little bit more of the story of the intent with the car and what you expect customers do with it, to drive them.
Absolutely, yeah. We seem to be attracting, GMA that is, we seem to be attracting a very different sort of supercar buyer. We reckon at least 85 of the 150s will be used regularly, and I think this one will probably be even higher. This is like a modern day Carrera GT, but on steroids, you know.
And perhaps I think even more usable, right? It will be.
Yeah, because it hasn't got the Carrera issues with the clutch and the ride height and no luggage space and that sort of stuff, and the handling.
Do you need, with such short overhangs like this, to install a lift system, or?
No, we run traditionally we run the cars unusually quite softly sprung, and we also run normal, what I would call normal ride height. So 100. To give you an example, the Carrera GT is 87 mil front and rear. This is 120 at the front and 145 at the rear.
Okay.
Which is hatchback, you know.
Yes.
I just think, first of all, a nose lift. I've driven cars with nose lifts. They're very inconvenient. They're a pain, actually, but also they're heavy and complicated. Yep. And all you give away in the end, if you do the calculations, this car's got a massively low center of gravity, because you can see how low the engine is. The crank on the engine's only 85 mil above the bottom of the sump. You know, It's ridiculous, you know.
Yeah.
So we haven't got a strong roll couple anyway. So raising the car 10, 15, 20 mil higher than a road car, you won't even feel on the road. If you took it to a track, you might be half a second slower driving on the limit with the ride height as high as this. But honestly, to give up that for everyday usability is it's a no-brainer for me.
Sure. Now, we touched on the two different options for gearbox in the car. You'll have the 6-speed manual.
Yep.
And additionally offer a paddle shift.
Yes, we've been developing, it's an extract system again. So they've been developing the paddle shift now for about 15 months. In fact, we've got a mule car, Lotus Emira, and I'm driving it next month with the first gearbox on it.
Okay.
Once again, like the engine, the gearbox breaks world records. So it's literally the fastest gear change on a road car on the planet.
Wow.
It's got no clutches, it's got no dog rings, and it's actually 2 kilos lighter than the manual.
Wow.
So it's the world's lightest paddle shift box, and it's the world's fastest. It's completely seamless, so there's no torque interrupt. You've heard people boast about 10 milliseconds, 5 minutes,
yes.
2 milliseconds. This doesn't have milliseconds. It's completely seamless.
As a petrol head, that's hard to compute quite how legendary it must be.
Yeah, it's actually a pre-selector, so it's already in the next gear.
Wow.
No clutches.
Wow, I cannot wait to see how that translates in driving experience.
The only bad news about the paddle shift is I think I've miscalculated, because we quietly went on pre-sale with this car like we did with the last one. And just to T50 owners and a handful of people that have been talking to us since the launch of 50. And we've already sold more than half the cars, pre-sold I should say, more than half the cars. Only 3 of them want paddle shifts. So.
Okay. So there's...
I think I could be embarrassed here.
Yeah, so manual, I mean, that's almost the unique thing that you offer in this market.
I suppose I should have, you know, this is me now being thick, because I should have thought what we're selling is the driving experience. You know, we're famously not chasing lap times on 0 to 60. If anybody thinks this is not going to feel quick, it's got a better power to weight ratio than a McLaren F1.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's what we're selling, and yet I expected people to buy a pedal shift.
Yeah.
So after spending millions on development, I've got a little bit of a red face, let's say.
Well, I think that's one of the exciting things, to be able to offer the option. We touched on 280 litres of storage space,
yep.
which presumably begins up front, but with that low scuffle.
I have to say, this is pretty conventional. So this is a rear hinged bonnet. Opens that way for easy access. There's 2 really nice sized cases. So instead of having the normal deep well that you get in a rear mid-engine car, we've got a full size luggage bin in the front.
Okay.
I think it's about 95 litres in the front. And then we've got the 2 top loading side bins, just like 50 and like the F1 in the flank. The problem was we had weeks of pain in the studio trying to work out how the hell you get the luggage in. So
Yes.
we couldn't do the gull wing because of this floating airbox. We couldn't do the gull wing like 50. This whole side opens on 50.
Yeah.
So, and I didn't want an ugly shut line across here.
No.
So what we decided in the end, I think the body engineers thought I was a bit insane to start with. What we decided is, this is the shut line. The hinge point is right back here by the tail light, and this whole side opens like a suicide door.
Okay. And the same on both sides?
Both sides, yeah.
And then
these also are hinged, top hinged, because I didn't want fuel caps on show. So these flip up and you've got fuel one side and oil the other.
Right, okay. I think that's the thing with the design, right? It's so tidy. I mean, I can't...
Absolutely. You know, I don't things like door handles I hate.
I was about to say, I can't see door handles.
That's the door handle.
Okay.
The badge.
Yeah. Or operated from the key, right?
Yeah, everything's remote.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing you don't need, really.
And I just see, looking down beneath the door, you even have kind of airflow managed.
Yeah, so that's the exit for the front wheel arch and also the front radiator, the side radiators.
Okay.
The front radiators, there's three, if you imagine them, two each side of the crash structure and one in the middle. The middle one exits under the floor.
Okay.
To save having any messy stuff on the top and to damage luggage space. And the side ones come out here.
And it keeps a very neatly packaged sculpture around the side as well. Yep. And then round towards the rear, we haven't touched so much on the design back here, but obviously a lot of openings, cooling, airflow.
Yeah, I mean you need a lot of this. With a ground effect car with a floor, you've got, you know, a 600 horsepower engine in a box basically, so you need to get the air out.
And then those exhaust tailpipes are quite a statement as well.
Yep, I don't do trapezoidal pipes, round and tail lights that, you know, these melted fruit type tail lights that will look very dated in 10 years time. So we try and keep things very technical and very sort of pure and simple.
Well, it certainly creates a very, very wonderful looking car. And back here, is this?
Yeah, so this is an active spoiler. Obviously, we don't have the low speed control we have with the fan on the fan car, but this gives us control over the balance of the car at different speeds. It also is driver selectable for high downforce mode.
Okay.
And under braking, there's an automatic mode. It's something I started way back on the F1, and now most people have. You know, and so that's more conventional than the fan car.
Yeah, yeah. It makes sense for the different purposes. So what will the car offer in terms of different driving modes or setups?
Well, again, here's another red-faced moment. When we started developing the Cosworth GMA with Cosworth, I insisted on 2 modes. And I said to them, I don't care if the sort of shopping, dropping the kids off mode is 9,000 revs, I don't care. But I want 2 modes because I can't believe you're going to have enough torque, you know. And they said then, this is end of 2018, remember? Okay. And they said, you won't need that. And then I saw the final, about a year later, I saw the final power and torque curves, and then of course I drove the car, and they're absolutely right. You know, you really don't need 2 modes. I think on 50 we have got 2 modes, but there's very little difference between them.
Mm-hmm. So in here it will keep it more simple, more usable, more accessible, I suppose.
Yeah, but I mean the engine has got such a massive torque spread, and the car's so light.
And it will sound absolutely heavenly. Well, thank you ever so much for sharing the car with us.
Pleasure.
The opportunity to come here and see it in the location where they will be assembled with deliveries, I believe, starting in 2024?
Very early 24, and we're prototyping this summer, actually.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the cars will be up and running.
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible. Well, congratulations on the success with the T50, T50S, and now the T33.
Thank you, it's been a pleasure.
Well, what a fantastic introduction to the GMA T33. A huge thanks to Gordon for his time to show us around. But I'd like to talk about a few more details as well, including some of the facts and figures. Now, T33 is not a car that is driven by numbers per se. It's more about the emotion and the feeling, but nonetheless, this engine, the 4-litre naturally aspirated V12, makes 615 horsepower It was 670 in the T50, and it makes 451 Newton meters. Now you might be thinking 615 and 451 are not the largest of numbers in this era where cars like the Ferrari 296 GTB, for example, the entry series production Ferrari supercar, offers 830. But then when you factor in that T33 has a weight of just 1,090 kilos, that means a horsepower per tonne of 564, which is a very, very impressive figure. Factor in also the fact that you get, as Gordon said, 90% of torque at 4,500 RPM and 75% of the torque from 2,500 RPM. With the speed at which it will rev up, that will feel like quite an impressively purposeful, fast, exciting car to drive, and I cannot wait to get a feeling for the sound and the spine-tingling sensations that this V12 will offer in future. Standing here looking at T33, we've talked about how small it is, but to give you some of those figures as well, it's just shy of 4 meters 40 long, which is about 45 centimeters shorter than the SF90. It's only 1 meter 85 wide, so it really is about the size of a Lotus or a small sports car, as opposed to the size of modern supercars trying to pack in hybrid technology and not having the opportunity to tightly package everything in the same way. It's a touch longer in the wheelbase than T50, about 3.5 centimeters or so longer, but it is a really very, very small, tightly packaged car. Things like the windshield wiper we haven't talked about, but sat in the center. We'll be able to take a full look at the interior in due course, but with a large pronounced central rev counter, emphasizing that feeling of the engine, but the controls around the driver's zone with a bespoke small steering wheel to feel engaged with the drive. In fact, I gather this is going to be quite clever with the way it's all illuminated. It makes you feel as the driver as well, but there's just so much to it. It's such a clean design, and I think the main highlight of that is around the front. There are no fins or spoilers or diffusers or splitters or crazy things out on show. It's just a car that's been made to be the ultimate everyday supercar. That's the idea. A V12, a manual gearbox option should you wish, and a car that really stands out and looks, if I can say this, a little bit more normal perhaps than the T50, obviously with the fan on the back. And I think really this is a very, very impressive thing. There'll be 100 rather lucky customers of the new GMA T.33. Wow, what an amazing chance to be here at the company's home, where these cars, as Gordon said, are going to be assembled, ready for deliveries in early 2024, about 2 years from now. But I believe we'll be seeing and hearing a running T33 before too long, and hopefully an opportunity as well to check out the T50. So stay tuned for that. A huge congratulations to Gordon and the team, to everyone at Gordon Murray Automotive. What an amazing car, what an amazing opportunity to be here, to be able to share it with you as well. So thank you very much for watching. As always, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this first look at the GMA T33, but that's it for this time, and I'll see you again very soon. Cheers.